more than the population.
The problem here is Trump has been able to make the argument that this is a political prosecution and that he's being...
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight.
We have achieved soft landing on the moon. India is on the moon.
Unparalleled excitement, goosebumps, nail-biting moments, loud cheers and tears of joy. That sums up what the day looked like for Indians in the country and around the world. What a truly remarkable day it has been. A truly historic moment as the Chandrayaan-3 mission landed successfully on the moon. And India, with that, has become the first country to reach the moon's south pole, the fourth country to land on the moon. And with that, becoming a part of an elite space club. It is an unprecedented achievement which makes the hearts of Indians around the world swell with pride. Tonight on Gravitas, we tell you all about why the Chandrayaan-3 mission stands out, what the day looked like, what this means for India's space journey and global lunar missions, and what happens from here onwards. Also on the show for you tonight, China's murky web of espionage just turned murkier, with the country now using the world's largest professional network, LinkedIn, for its spy games. We tell you what's happening. As New Delhi gears up to welcome leaders from around the world for the G20 summit, is it prepared to deal with their arrival? Where will VVIPs park their jets? We discuss this. Pilgrims faced fierce storms as heavy rainfall lashed Mecca. We get you the latest from on the ground. We also tell you how Russia and Ukraine are upping the ante as the game of drones continues to play out. India has landed on the south pole of the moon. And this is something that no country, I repeat, no country has been able to do. Indians are over the moon. To call this day historic will be underplaying it. This day is inspiring. This day, you see, is the result of years of hard work. It is the result of the prayers of 1.4 billion people. And of course, unmatched technological prowess. And it's all courtesy India's scientists at ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, that India has been able to do what no country has till date. The big question is, what next? We will discuss that and a lot more tonight over the next few minutes. But first, let's just recap for you this very special day. It began with prayers, with thousands gathering at temples on the banks of the holy river Ganga to pray for the safe landing of Chandrayaan-3. The newspapers this morning were all counting down to the historical landing. There was a taste of impending success in the air, and the stock market was reacting accordingly. Shares of aerospace companies and companies that supplied parts to Chandrayaan-3 were in the green. Centrum Electronics, that delivered over 200 mission-critical modules to the Chandrayaan-3 mission, zoomed 14.91%. L&T provided components for the launch vehicle, and its shares were up 1.47%. And many companies associated with the Chandrayaan-3 mission saw a 52-week high at the stock market. And as evening approached, students started gathering at planetariums around India. Screens were set up at schools, colleges, offices, housing societies. People gathered, eagerly waiting to see India make history. At the ISRO control room in Bengaluru, there were mixed emotions. There was excitement, there was tension, and of course, fear. You see, in September 2019, India's second moon mission, Chandrayaan-2, had lost control. It was attempting to land on the moon, and it was just a little over 7 kilometers from the lunar surface, so close. Less than 4 years later, India was attempting another landing with a stronger lander, increased landing range, more fuel, and more solar panels. And as the final countdown began, you could hear heartbeats becoming faster. Tens of thousands of miles away in the lunar atmosphere, Chandrayaan's Vikram lander was executing a complex maneuver. It slowed down from over 3,700 miles an hour to almost zero. The lander was turning from a horizontal to a vertical position. And here in the newsroom, we all gathered around TV sets, our eyes glued to the screen, looking at the decreasing altitude of the lander. Also watching the descent via video link all the way from South Africa was India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
The sensors that are updating at this point are providing confirmation of the safety of the landing site.
As expected, the retargeting is going on. कि हम lander module.
People are applauding.
जी हाँ, आप अपनी स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं कि हम lander module.
We have achieved soft landing on the moon. India is on the moon.
Celebrations, tears of joy, and a waving flag. That is how India made history and made its mark on the moon. Only 3 other countries have landed on the moon till date, by the way. The US, the Soviet Union, and China. But in all of these cases, the mission landed near the moon's equator. Landing there is safer and a whole lot easier, as compared to landing on the south pole of the moon. At the South Pole, you have no sunlight. The temperature goes below minus 230 degrees Celsius. And to make things more difficult, the South Pole also has large craters. It's not easy to land there, to say the least. Just this weekend, in fact, Russia tried landing its Luna 25 mission on the lunar South Pole. It spun out of control and crashed on the moon. Chandrayaan-3 landed softly, demonstrating to the entire world the capability of India's space technology.
मेरे प्यारे परिवारजनों, जब हम अपनी आंखों के सामने ऐसा इतिहास बनते हुए देखते हैं तो जीवन धन्य हो जाता है। ये पल अविस्मरणीय है, ये क्षण अभूतपूर्व है। ये क्षण विकसित भारत के शंखनाद का है। ये क्षण नए भारत के जयघोष का है।
It is a moment of national pride, a moment that will be remembered by each and every Indian and will inspire generations to come.
I want to tell you, and I want to thank you also for each and everyone who prayed with us in the last many days, who wanted this success to happen in ISRO. I thank all those people in all around the country and maybe beyond the country for their blessings and wishes and affection that he has given to each one of us for doing this work for the last so many years.
The mood here in India is unmatched. There are celebrations, there are parties, fireworks.
Promotion तथा
And ISRO did not feel the need to hurry up. It used a less powerful rocket and let Chandrayaan-3 orbit the Earth several times to gain the speed for its month-long journey to the moon. Chandrayaan-3's rover will now be leaving India's mark on the moon as it probes the South Pole. I don't know if you know this, but the wheels of Chandrayaan-3's rover Pragyan have the Indian national flag and ISRO's logo imprinted on them, enabling India to leave its mark as it probes the lunar South Pole. So the immediate question is, what happens now? What's next? 1. Research and scientific exploration. Chandrayaan-3 will be carrying out experiments to check habitability of exoplanets. It will be detecting and studying lunar quakes. Not just that, it will also be studying the lunar soil, very important. Also important, exploring if there is water ice on the moon.
In fact, the landing on the South Pole would actually allow India to explore if there is water ice on the moon. And this is very important for cumulative data and science on the geology of the moon and actually having more information about the exploration and of the solar system, history and evolution.
And the thing is, if ice exists in sufficient quantities, then it could change the game of space exploration. It could be a source of drinking water. The water could also be broken down to produce hydrogen for fuel and oxygen to breathe. And this is not just for the moon missions. The moon could then become a stopover for the missions to Mars. The moon's South Pole is believed to have the key to unlocking this future. And now India is on that very lunar South Pole. It is the only country, and this feat will, without doubt, be a big boost to India's space economy. It is expected to be worth $13 billion by 2025. And Arthur D. Little reports saying India's space economy has the potential to touch $100 billion by 2040. India's current share in the global space economy stands at 2%. The government targets a 9% by the year 2030. Chandrayaan-3 will be the vehicle that helps India reach this very target. You know, it will attract investment into India's space sector, boost the government's plans to promote private space launches and satellite businesses. India wants its private space companies to increase their share of the global launch market by 5-fold within the next decade, and Chandrayaan-3 will be catalytic to this plan. By encouraging more and more players to essentially become a part of India's space journey, the success of Chandrayaan-3 will also be a big boost to ISRO as it prepares for Gaganyaan, its first human space flight. Chandrayaan-3 left for the moon on the 14th of July. And everything since has been a countdown to this very point that we witnessed today. The journey of Chandrayaan-3, along with that of India's first 2 moon missions, have been metaphorical to India's journey as a space power. The journey of a country that proudly marries religious devotion with science. A country that believes in its enormous potential, in its people, its scientists, its leaders. A country of Vikram Sarabhai, APJ Abdul Kalam, Venkataraman Radhakrishnan, Dr. K. Sivan, and S. Somnath. India's journey to space began with cycles and bullock carts, the search for magnetic equator, with a church being turned into a launch station. There were failures, there were also learnings, and many successes. And here we are, decades later, India is on the moon, the south pole of the moon, where no country, and I repeat once again, no country has been able to land. Chandrayaan-3 is the face of India's space economy. It is the face of unstoppable India and India's message to the world. You see, this is India telling the world that the moon is just the beginning.
India is on the moon.
India's successful moon mission is not just India's alone.
And our next story is about China's murky web of espionage. It's slowly becoming more lethal and more sophisticated. Lethal because of just how far and deep it has spread, and sophisticated because of the tools and the techniques that are involved. You see, after balloons and honey traps, the Chinese espionage machinery has turned to LinkedIn. That's right, the world's largest professional network, which connects job seekers with employers. And guess how China is using it? It's using LinkedIn to lure government officials and enticing them into leaking state secrets. And the biggest victim, by the way, of this new approach has been the United Kingdom. According to a new report, a Chinese intelligence operative targeted thousands of British officials by using a string of fake profiles on LinkedIn. And he used these profiles to strike flashy business deals, in return acquired classified government information. Let me just take you through the key findings of this very report. To start with, the secret agent had been operating under the alias Robin Zhang. Now, he is said to be one of the most prolific spies working in the UK in years. He created a string of profiles, fake security companies and websites to shore up credibility. His main targets, you see, were British security officials, civil servants, scientists, academicians, basically anyone with access to classified information or commercially sensitive technology. And what's worse, he contacted all of them from a desk probably based at the Chinese Ministry of State Security's headquarters in Beijing. Imagine that, a spy sitting on a desk in Beijing stealing state secrets from British officials thousands of miles away. And all it took was one app, LinkedIn. Let's just look at the aliases that he used. A Times UK report claims that his main pseudonyms were Zhang, Eric Chen Yishi, Robin Koh, Lincoln Lam, John Lee, Eric Kim. And for all of these profiles, he used stock images and photographs of seemingly innocent-looking people. But that is besides the point. The big question here is just how gullible were the British officials that the spy targeted? Are they really so unaware about online scams that they actually fell for an impressive LinkedIn profile? I mean, we are not talking about civilians here. These are scientists, security officials, civil servants that we are talking about. How can they be so over-trusting of someone that they just met online? Well, blame the spies' methods. Reports say most of these individuals were so keen for private sector work that they sent him CVs, and some fell for it when he flattered their work. Others were lured by the offer of cash. Now, here's the thing. The timing of this report is interesting in itself. It comes just weeks after a British intelligence watchdog had issued a warning. What kind of warning? That Chinese spies are, quote-unquote, prolifically and aggressively targeting the UK. It said that these spies were trying to penetrate every sector of the UK's economy. And it turns out the warning really was not off the mark. A few months prior, this report emerged. It was from the MI5. It said that citizens from hostile states like China had entered the UK. It said that they did so after acquiring citizenship in countries whose nationals can enter Britain without the need for a visa. And how exactly were they entering the UK? According to MI5, through countries like Vanuatu, a South Pacific Ocean nation, Namibia in Southern Africa, and Timor-Leste in Southeast Asia. Now, these are among a growing number of countries that allow foreign nations basically to acquire citizenship, either by investing or paying a small amount of money. And what do they do once they are in the UK? Do they also use LinkedIn to identify potential targets? Well, why wouldn't they? This platform, after all, saves expenditure of time as well as resources. And all that the spies really have to do is search the name of the entity or the official they want to extract information from. And even the most seasoned professional would be flattered to receive a contact request from either an attractive young woman or perhaps an expert working in their field. And Chinese spies are doing exactly that. And they are not alone, by the way. Have a look at this report. It's from July 2023. This is when Israel busted an Iranian phishing network on LinkedIn. And this network was basically trying to infect the computers of its victims with malicious software and gather information. And it does not end there. Russia, for that matter, also uses LinkedIn to target and recruit spies. In 2021, the Netherlands expelled 2 Russian spies, and they had apparently enticed employers of Dutch companies into revealing secrets. So from China to Iran to Russia, spies from all these countries are using this platform for espionage. Too bad Western countries cannot replicate it, because these countries have either banned LinkedIn or restricted it. And our next story is about Xi Jinping. On Tuesday afternoon, when he landed in Johannesburg to kickstart his state visit to South Africa and also to push for the expansion of BRICS at the bloc's meeting, many assumed that he would go all out in selling China's narrative to the world. But last evening, something rather unexpected transpired. The Chinese president unexpectedly skipped a business forum of the BRICS, a forum where he was supposed to speak about China's economic plans. But that did not happen. Not only did he not speak, he was also not present at the event. Instead, he asked his Commerce Minister, Wang Wentao, to deliver remarks in his place. But why did that happen in the first place? What explains this no-show? I mean, every BRICS leader spoke at the event. The South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, the Brazilian President, Lula da Silva, even Vladimir Putin, although virtually. Why then did Xi Jinping pull back? His mysterious absence, especially at a multilateral forum which China has ambitions to expand, has raised several eyebrows. And it also sparked a flurry of rumors, by the way, with Chinese analysts trying to understand why the last-minute change was made. Was it because of a health incident or some pressing matter, or perhaps a development related to the summit? Neither Chinese diplomats nor the state media have offered any explanation. And this lack of transparency is hardly surprising. Whenever it comes to personal matters or sensitive issues, Chinese officials tightly lock down the flow of information. And this is yet another reminder of how Beijing can be a black box. But unlike China and its leader who did not turn up, India made the most of the opportunity. The Indian Prime Minister was present at the event, and he ensured that he pitched India's growth story to the entire world. He spoke about how India is now the world's fastest growing economy, how it's on the path to become a $5 trillion economy, also how it will be the world's growth engine. Listen to this.
वैश्विक अर्थव्यवस्था में उथल-पुथल के बावजूद भारत आज विश्व की फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग मेजर इकोनॉमी है। जल्द ही भारत $5 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी बन जाएगा। इस बात में कोई संदेह नहीं कि आने वाले वर्षों में भारत विश्व का ग्रोथ इंजन होगा। यह इसलिए है क्योंकि भारत ने आपदा और मुश्किलों के समय को आर्थिक सुधार के अवसर में परिवर्तित किया। पिछले कुछ वर्षों में हमने मिशन मोड में जो रिफॉर्म्स किए हैं, उनसे भारत में ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस में लगातार बढ़ोतरी हुई है।
And today, Prime Minister Modi attended the BRICS plenary session, and there he called upon the bloc to establish a space exploration consortium. He further shared India's experience with the digital delivery of public goods and offered to share the learnings with the BRICS nations. Not just that, he recommended joint efforts in education, technology, skill assessment. Listen in.
हम ब्रिक्स सैटेलाइट कॉन्स्टेलेशन पर पहले से काम कर रहे हैं। एक कदम आगे बढ़ाते हुए हम ब्रिक्स स्पेस एक्सप्लोरेशन कंसोरियम बनाने पर विचार कर सकते हैं। इसके अंतर्गत हम स्पेस रिसर्च, वेदर मॉनिटरिंग जैसे क्षेत्रों में ग्लोबल गुड के लिए काम कर सकते हैं। मेरा दूसरा सुझाव है शिक्षा, स्किल डेवलपमेंट और टेक्नोलॉजी में सहयोग। ब्रिक्स को एक फ्यूचर रेडी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बनाने के लिए हमें अपनी सोसाइटीज को फ्यूचर रेडी बनाना होगा।
And as for Xi Jinping, he did turn up on day 2, but only to make official remarks. He spoke about the new development bank of the BRICS group of countries and also the need to reform the international monetary system. Critics are wondering if such reforms will take place back home as well, especially when it comes to free speech. Have a look at the headline on your screen. A Chinese dissident who was previously jailed for criticizing Xi Jinping has fled China. And wait until you hear how he fled. He used a jet ski to escape to South Korea, towing barrels of fuel behind him to ensure that he completed that long journey. This is the state of affairs back home. This is what things have come down to. Clearly, Xi Jinping has more reasons than one to not face the cameras. The G20 summit is around the corner. Here in New Delhi, leaders from around the world will converge soon to discuss and deliberate. In a world marked by the ebb and flow of power dynamics, especially as we enter an era of the new Cold War, as experts have said, one between China and the US, the G20 summit assumes special significance. All eyes are on India as the curtain rises. India, an emerging powerhouse, holds the cards in the high-stakes battle. India is not just a country, it's a force to be reckoned with. A fact acknowledged by the world's most powerful country, the US. India holds the key in this delicate dance of power. The US is stepping up efforts to woo India. Washington recognizes that India is vital when it comes to efforts to contain China's aggression. After all, both Washington and New Delhi want the same thing: a strong counterbalance to China. US President Joe Biden has grand plans to cement the US position in the Indo-Pacific, and India could play a determining part in their success. And that's why Joe Biden calls India the most important country in the world.
And he told me when he asked me to come serve here, he said, "This is the most important country in the world to me. But now that we're working together in space, not even the sky is the limit. From the seabed to the heavens, the US and India are a force for good and a powerful force to move this world forward."
That was the US Ambassador to India, Eric Garcetti, sharing America's sentiment towards India. The remarks coming ahead of Joe Biden's visit to India for the G20 summit in New Delhi. It also comes at a time when a China-dominated forum of major emerging economies, BRICS, is holding its own summit in South Africa, like we just told you. Leaders from BRICS nations, in fact, are deliberating ways to counter the dominance of the West-led framework in global trade. And they're also discussing expanding that bloc. And China, for that matter, is trying to use this very grouping to bolster its image as a leader of the global South. India can see through that. So can Washington. The US wants to counter China's weight in global development. Washington wants to give the developing nations an alternative to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. It wants to basically prove a better support and financing option for developing countries in the global South. And most importantly, it wants to challenge China's blot to displace the US from the global leader status. So here's what's on the agenda. Discussions between Joe Biden and his G20 counterparts are expected to cover various global issues: the transition to clean energy, combating climate change, the economic and social impact of the Ukraine war. US President Joe Biden also plans to advocate for reforms to the IMF and the World Bank during the G20 summit. And during his time in New Delhi, President Biden will also express his appreciation for Prime Minister Modi's leadership within the G20. The US basically will also reaffirm its commitment to the G20 as the primary platform for international economic cooperation. And America will further extend its involvement by hosting the G20 summit in the year 2026. And the G20 provides the US the perfect platform to directly engage with the world's emerging economies. The US president will reportedly focus his energy on having the US and like-minded countries, quote unquote, bring more support for the rest of the world, particularly to the global South. But let's not forget here, on the surface, the US is trying to stabilize its relations with Beijing, seeing as ties are at the lowest point due to a number of issues. But the efforts to rekindle the relationship have also been marred by a series of tense exchanges. Earlier this month, Biden called China a ticking time bomb because of its economic challenges. He said that the country was in trouble because of weak growth. They have got some problems. That is what Joe Biden said. And before that, in the month of June, Biden called the Chinese President Xi Jinping a dictator. China, of course, took offense, calling the remarks a provocation. Biden says he does not want to hurt China, but then this month itself, Biden signed an executive order banning US investment in Chinese technology sectors. The Biden administration has also made efforts to break the dependence on Chinese supply chains. So there you have it. The upcoming summit in New Delhi takes place in the backdrop of this complex and growing rivalry between the US and China. It is a stage for India to flex its diplomatic muscles. India has strategically worked not to be confined to any one side. And as the summit gets closer, one thing is clear. The global South can count on India, at least, to be its champion, especially in an era of great power competition. And as I speak of Joe Biden, where will the American president and other VVIPs park their jets? As you may already know, India is set to host the G20 summit, like we just told you. But are the airports in the country prepared? You see, the roads and car parks of the national capital, New Delhi, are notorious for traffic, also for overcrowding. And the problem has now reached its airport as well. According to reports, about 50 VVIP aircraft are expected to land in New Delhi next month. Ideally, they would be parked at the Indira Gandhi International Airport and the IAF base in Palam. But you see, both the airports reportedly have space for only 40 jets. So where exactly would the VVIP planes be parked? Where would they land? The thing is, New Delhi has become a graveyard of failed planes. Reports say anywhere between 40 to 80 planes are parked at the capital's airport. They basically belong to operators like Indigo and Go First. A lot of these aircraft are grounded due to engine issues, courtesy the Pratt & Whitney glitch. The aerospace giant's defective engines have been creating trouble for a while now. India's third largest airline, Go First, has been adversely impacted. The engine issues forced the carrier to halt the operations. It is also Pratt & Whitney's fourth largest global customer. But the commercial relationship between the two has frayed. The engine maker has been rather slow in solving the crisis. Go First claims it is a deliberate attempt by Pratt & Whitney to kill the airline. Go First has 13 aircraft parked at Delhi's airport, and now it's not just the carrier's problem. It has become a headache for the Delhi International Airport Limited, or DIAL, as well. While some planes are non-functional, others remain disputed. Aircraft from Jet Airways continue to be parked since the year 2019. It has been 4 years already. Smaller jets used for charter are also parked at the airport. And in some cases, DIAL has secured its payments with bank guarantees. However, in other cases, it's struggling to get remittance from the aircraft owners. To make more space, these aircraft need to be removed. But the question is, where will they go? And reports say the Indian Ministry of External Affairs is looking for solutions. On top of trying to remove the grounded flights, it's also scouting nearby airports to park the jets that will be landing during the G20 summit. Jaipur, Lucknow, Amritsar and Indore have been shortlisted as possible options. There was a lot of talk about closing one of the runways at the Indira Gandhi International Airport and use it as parking space. But the problem here is all runways would be needed during the summit. And if it was closed, the taxiing time would only increase. Global leaders will start arriving in New Delhi on the 8th of September. That's roughly 15 days from now. India needs to come up with a solution fast. And it's not just G20. Parking for Indian carriers has been a challenge of late. You see, the Indian aviation sector is growing at a remarkable pace. Domestic carriers like Air India and Indigo have placed record orders to expand their fleet. Airlines are rushing to grow their network and the market share. And while there is enough space in the air to accommodate the increased number of flights, there isn't as much on the ground. Overnight parking is a struggle for carriers. Major hub airports of Delhi and Mumbai are their all-time favorites. Both provide a steady flow of traffic. And airlines try their best to get important slots here in order to capitalize on the demand. But parking slots at these airports are now short in supply. According to aeronautical informational publication, Delhi and Mumbai airports can accommodate up to 364 aircraft. There are 233 parking stands at Delhi's airport, 131 in Mumbai's. But you see, airlines can only get around half of the parking spots that they actually need. And once again, we have the grounded flights to blame. The number of commercial aircraft in India is only going to increase in the coming years. And with that, it would get trickier for the airlines to find their way around the parking issues. But there is hope. Both Delhi and Mumbai are in the process of getting additional airports. And this would bring much needed relief in the parking crunch. And it's not just the two metropolitans. Other destinations like Bengaluru, Kolkata, Hyderabad are also getting an infrastructural boost. The airports are getting additional terminal buildings. Simply put, the pace of infrastructure development needs to keep up with the aircraft deliveries scheduled in the future. Or else the parking crisis would only get worse. And as I talk about Indian Airlines, a major mishap was averted at the Indira Gandhi International Airport. Here's what happened. This morning, a Vistara Airlines aircraft was given permission for takeoff. It was set to fly from Delhi to Bagdogra. It was on the airport's newly inaugurated runway, but another one was still in the process of landing. And the Vistara flight from Ahmedabad to Delhi was moving towards the end of the runway. Normally, an aircraft is not given a takeoff clearance on one runway unless the aircraft on the second runway has landed. If the plane on the second runway decides to abort the landing and carry out a go-around, it is risky for both the flights. And since their runways were so closely spaced, their paths in the air may conflict. Simply put, it was a close call. Both the planes could have collided with each other, and this would have been a disaster. But the air traffic control officer stopped the mishap. He was informed by the pilot of the plane on the taxiway. And the officer gave instructions to abort the takeoff. At first, the passengers of the Delhi to Bagdogra flight were apprehensive when the pilot announced the flight would not be taking off. But in the end, they were saved from a tragedy. The flight returned to the parking bay from the active runway and nobody got hurt. Let's now shift our focus to Saudi Arabia. The holy city of Mecca is witnessing massive storms, lightning strikes, videos showing pilgrims being dragged away by the powerful force of the winds, electricity poles leaning over roads. The National Met Center has meanwhile issued an alert as Jeddah also witnesses dust storms. Weather experts have also predicted thunderstorms in several parts. Our next report telling you more.
Pilgrims struggling to stand up straight. People being dragged away by gushing winds. A ruthless storm blowing away everything in its path. The pilgrims you see being blown away were visiting Mecca for Umrah. A pilgrimage to Mecca that is shorter than the annual Hajj gathering. The aim is to seek mercy and acceptance from gods through prayers. Only that the weather does not seem to be too merciful right now. It is not only the strong winds which are attacking the holy city. Heavy lightning strikes and rain are also terrorizing pilgrims. Look at these visuals. Purple lightning strikes a clock tower near the Grand Mosque. People walking on streets flooded with water. Continuous lightning partners with rising water on the streets. Weather experts have forecasted heavy thunderstorms in regions like Medina, Mecca, Asir, Jazan and Al-Baha. Polar opposite weather conditions are affecting other parts of the country. Reports say that regions of Rafah and Hafar al-Batin are experiencing temperatures of 47 degrees Celsius. Experts say the extreme weather changes take place due to changes in atmospheric and oceanic conditions.
Climate change affects the overall atmospheric and oceanic conditions that definitely then impacts the strength and the impact of any particular weather event, whether, like, say, it be wind or rain, hurricanes, whatever it might be.
And it's not just Mecca. Storms are taking place all over the globe. Take the case of Storm Hillary in South Carolina in the United States. You can see how the roads are being ravaged by water. Roads being turned into swamps. Experts are calling Storm Hillary historic. as it's the first tropical storm in Southern California since 1939. Such events are very rare in places like California.
Well, we did receive, you look at the rainfall totals across Southern California, coastal areas received upwards of 4 to 5 inches. In the mountains and deserts, you had upwards of some areas in excess of 10 inches of rainfall. So with that much rainfall in such a short period of time, there were many reports of flooding. I'm sure you've seen some things on social media, especially like in the Yucaipa area, Oak Glen, out in the deserts like Palm Springs and things like that. A lot of significant flooding.
So will Mecca face the same fate as California? And more importantly, is Saudi Arabia equipped to handle such weather changes? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
While Ukraine does not typically admit attacking Russia, the President Volodymyr Zelensky has publicly warned that the war is now returning to Russia, and it has. On Wednesday morning, the Russian air defenses shot down 2 drones and electronically disabled another one. This is the latest in a series of attempted drone raids on the Russian capital. Russia accuses Ukraine of launching these drones. Air traffic at 3 airports in Moscow was affected as a result. Drone raids at Moscow have become a near daily occurrence. On Tuesday alone, 5 settlements were bombed by drones. Ukrainian forces used small UAVs carrying light explosive payloads for such sorties. And it follows Zelensky's warning in late July. The Ukrainian leader had described the growing number of drone strikes in Moscow as inevitable, natural, and an absolutely fair process. In fact, he described it as justified response to the months of relentless Russian drone attacks on Ukrainian cities and the country's civilian infrastructure. One-way attack drones, kamikaze drones, may not look like much, but they do pose a serious challenge for air defenses. They are laden with artillery and explosives, and are also called suicide drones as they are designed to blast or get destroyed in the attack, causing maximum damage. They are the cheaper alternative to cruise missiles and can strike their targets from hundreds of kilometers away. Russia has been using these kamikaze drones to target Ukraine, and Ukraine has been confronting this problem since the war started. Many Ukrainian cities, like Odessa, still remain vulnerable. Ukraine has so far used its limited number of long-range drones to strike Russian military and government sites. And in addition to the attacks on Moscow, Ukraine has launched a number of drone strikes on targets in Russian-occupied Crimea. Attacks have also involved both air and marine drones aimed at thwarting the day-to-day operations of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Most recently, Ukraine demonstrated its advanced naval drone capabilities with a series of successful attacks in the Black Sea. In early August, Ukrainian drones struck a Russian warship and a sanctioned Russian oil tanker used to supply the Russian military. It caused serious damage to both the vessels. These attacks took place close to Novorossiysk, an important Russian naval base and oil port in the eastern Black Sea. Now, Ukraine's use of drone attacks sparking alarm and, frankly, considerable embarrassment for Russia. And why shouldn't they? They are the invading forces. They hold vast parts of Ukrainian territory. And Ukraine continues to demonstrate extraordinary courage in the face of the Russian aggression. The Russian military planners are now facing the same dilemma Ukrainian counterparts were facing. They are confronted with the task of finding a balance between maintaining air defenses along the front lines and also securing the airspace above the Russian capital and other key cities like Belgorod. You see, for Kiev, manufacturing one-way attack drones has become a priority. It has become a key element of their army of drone strategy. According to a recent report, there are currently more than 200 companies officially manufacturing drones in Ukraine. Hundreds of smaller-scale startup-style operations are also developing new drone models as Ukrainians race to get a technological edge on their Russian enemies. And of course, Ukraine's partners are also helping Ukraine. In May this year, the UK announced its decision to arm Ukraine with attack drones. UK is one of the many countries currently sending drone technology to Ukraine. Recent Ukrainian drone attacks suggesting that the momentum in the drone warfare may be shifting in Ukraine's favor, and Russia is now faced with the task of redeploying its air defenses to counter the growing drone threat from Ukraine. And it also, by the way, points to a larger picture of the war as it stands today. Ukrainian and Russian armies are deploying one-way attack drones with growing frequency. They are using these drones to strike armor, as well as military targets located well behind the approximately 1,200-kilometer front line. On land and sea, drones are playing an increasingly critical role in the war. And Ukraine is demonstrating its ability to strike back via drones because the battle on the land has been entering a stalemate, and all that keeps escalating is the war of words. Take the case of Russia's former president and the current deputy chair of the Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev. He has emerged as Russia's most pro-war vitriolic figure, has issued yet another warning to the West. He warned that Russia may annex Georgia's breakaway regions if the West keeps creating tension over the country by discussing its possible membership in the NATO. And Georgian officials say they are committed to joining the US-led military alliance so that they can preserve territorial integrity of their country. But Russia sees NATO's expansion as a provocation from the West. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. Leaving you as always with Gravitas Images. This is me, Maudi Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
New drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
Watch Gravitas.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hi, I'm Alison Grange, and you're watching E-Club. Here are the nominees for Achievement in Music.
People are totally wrong who keep telling me that, oh, you're multitasker. I'm not.
Awards and fashion shows are in full swing.
Seeing a young, black man, directing a feature film, I saw myself in him.
Engage with us. Let us know what you'd like to see on the show and celebrities that you'd like us to feature.